The year was 2032, and the city of Metronova hummed with the invisible energy of complete 5G coverage. In the depths of an underground laboratory beneath Tanshuan District, Dr. Lan Huang adjusted her thick-rimmed glasses and stared at the data streaming across her monitors. As the leading radio wave researcher at the National Information Technology Institute, she had spent years preparing for this moment, the commercial launch of the global 5G network. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the concrete walls of the secret facility. Banks of sophisticated equipment lined the room, their indicators blinking in synchronized patterns. Today marked the culmination of decades of technological advancement, yet Dr. Huang couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into uncharted territory. "Dr. Huang, we're ready to begin the final phase of testing," announced her assistant, marking the clipboard with precise notations. The volunteer group had been carefully selected. 12 individuals from diverse backgrounds, all eager to participate in what they believed was a routine assessment of 5G network stability. As the morning progressed, Dr. Huang monitored the volunteers through one-way glass. They sat in a circle, each equipped with the latest 5G-enabled devices. The network had gone live at precisely 6:00 a.m., and now, 3 hours later, something extraordinary was beginning to unfold. The first sign came from Lin An, a young graduate student who suddenly gasped and turned to the man beside her. "You're thinking about your daughter's birthday party next week," she said, her voice trembling with confusion. The man's face went pale. He hadn't spoken about his daughter to anyone in the room. Dr. Huang's hands froze over her keyboard. This wasn't part of the expected parameters. She had been studying radio waves for 15 years, but nothing in her research had suggested this possibility. The 5G frequencies they were testing operated at 28 gigahertz, well within established safety limits, yet somehow affecting neural activity in ways science couldn't explain. Over the next hour, more incidents occurred. Volunteers began sharing thoughts they hadn't voiced, accessing memories that belonged to others, experiencing emotions that weren't their own. The controlled environment of the laboratory descended into chaos as participants struggled to distinguish between their own consciousness and the mental intrusions flooding their minds. Dr. Huang immediately contacted her superior, expecting guidance and support. Instead, she received an order that chilled her to the bone. "Keep everything confidential, continue the experiments. This is now classified under Project Ether." The voice belonged to Deputy Minister Bin, from the Ministry of Information, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency was legendary throughout government circles. Dr. Huang had worked with government oversight before, but this felt different. The urgency in his voice suggested that what they had discovered wasn't unexpected. It was planned. Against her better judgment, Dr. Huang expanded the testing program. The government provided additional funding, more sophisticated equipment, and a steady stream of volunteers who believed they were participating in network optimization studies. What they were actually doing was mapping the extent of 5G-induced telepathic abilities. The results were both fascinating and terrifying. Volunteers could read thoughts at distances up to 50 meters when within range of 5G towers. The effect seemed to strengthen with exposure time, but it came at a devastating cost. Many participants experienced severe psychological trauma upon hearing the unfiltered thoughts of strangers, their fears, hatreds, secret desires, and hidden shames. Dr. Puang, a psychiatrist brought in to assist with the psychological evaluations, documented cases of volunteers attempting suicide after learning devastating truths about loved ones. Others suffered complete mental breakdowns, unable to distinguish between their own thoughts and the cacophony of mental voices surrounding them. "This is madness," Dr. Puang confided to Dr. Huang during a late-night session. "We're not studying technology anymore. We're experimenting on human consciousness itself. The ethical violations alone should shut this program down immediately." But Dr. Huang found herself caught between scientific curiosity and moral obligation. The data was unprecedented, offering insights into human consciousness that could revolutionize neuroscience. Yet each day brought new evidence of the psychological damage being inflicted on innocent volunteers. Meanwhile, investigative journalist Min Tuan had begun noticing patterns in the city's psychiatric admission rates. Hospitals reported a surge in patients experiencing auditory hallucinations and paranoid delusions, all concentrated in areas with the strongest 5G coverage. His requests for official comment were met with deflection and denial. Tuan's investigation led him to connect with family members of the test volunteers. Through careful detective work, he began piecing together the existence of the secret program. His attempts to contact Dr. Huang directly were blocked, but he managed to establish a covert communication channel through an encrypted messaging system. The breakthrough came when Lin An, the first volunteer to demonstrate telepathic abilities, approached Dr. Huang with a shocking revelation. "I need to tell you something about why I volunteered for this program," she said, her voice heavy with guilt. "My father is Deputy Minister Bin. He asked me to participate and report back to him on everything I learned." Dr. Huang felt the ground shift beneath her. The program hadn't been a scientific endeavor from the beginning. It had been a covert government operation to weaponize human consciousness. Lin An's participation wasn't coincidental. She was a spy within their own ranks. "But I can't continue this deception," Lin An continued, tears streaming down her face. "What we're doing to these people is monstrous. The government plans to use this technology to control the population. They want to be able to read the thoughts of citizens to detect dissent before it becomes action." The weight of this revelation compelled Dr. Huang to make a choice that would define the rest of her life. She began secretly compiling all research data recordings of volunteer sessions and documentation of the psychological damage caused by Project Ether. Working with Min Tuan, she prepared to expose the truth to the world. The climax came during an emergency session of the National Security Council. Deputy Minister Bin presented his proposal to deploy the 5G telepathy network as a tool for social control and national security. The plan involved subtle manipulation of the frequency ranges to allow government agents to monitor civilian thoughts selectively. "Imagine a world without crime, without terrorism, without dissent," Bin argued to the assembled officials. "We can detect threats before they materialize, identify traitors among us, maintain perfect social order." That night, Dr. Huang made her move. Using the encrypted network Tuan had established, she simultaneously released all research data to news organizations worldwide. But her masterstroke was more dramatic. She temporarily hijacked the 5G network to broadcast a wide-spectrum signal that made the thoughts of government officials audible to everyone within range. For 12 minutes, the true thoughts of political leaders echoed through the minds of citizens across the city. Corruption, manipulation, contempt for the public they claimed to serve, all of it became transparent. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. Chaos erupted across the nation. Protesters filled the streets, demanding transparency and the immediate shutdown of the 5G network. Phone records, internet communications, and government documents flooded the public sphere, as whistleblowers throughout the system felt empowered to reveal what they knew. The government responded by declaring a state of emergency and ordering the temporary cessation of 5G services. But the damage was done. Dr. Huang had gone into hiding, moving through a network of safe houses established by supporters who believed in her cause. During this period of upheaval, the true scope of Project Ether was revealed. Internal documents showed that government officials had been aware of the telepathic effects of 5G technology since the early testing phases. They had deliberately moved forward with global deployment planning to use the capabilities for mass surveillance and thought control. The revelation sparked international outrage. Other nations admitted to conducting similar experiments, leading to a worldwide moratorium on 5G networks until proper ethical frameworks could be established. 2 months after the initial exposure, Dr. Huang emerged from hiding to appear on international television. Flanked by human rights lawyers and surrounded by protesters calling for justice, she presented the complete record of Project Ether to the world. Science exists to serve humanity, not to enslave it. She declared, her voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. The ability to read human thoughts represents the ultimate violation of privacy and human dignity. We must ask ourselves, are we ready for technology that can peer into our souls? Her testimony revealed the full extent of the psychological damage inflicted on volunteers. Many had suffered permanent mental trauma. Several had taken their own lives rather than live with the constant invasion of unwanted thoughts. Families had been destroyed as hidden truths came to light, and relationships had crumbled under the weight of total transparency. Deputy Minister Bin faced criminal charges for human experimentation and violation of human rights. In a final twist, Lin An testified against her own father, providing crucial evidence that sealed his conviction. Her cooperation with Dr. Huang had been genuine, driven by genuine horror at what her father's ambitions had wrought. The investigation revealed that Project Ether had been in development for years, with participation from telecommunications companies, military contractors, and government agencies across multiple nations. The goal had always been societal control through technological means, using the promise of faster communication to mask a surveillance network of unprecedented scope. As the trials proceeded, society grappled with fundamental questions about the role of technology in human life. The 5G network remained shut down in most countries, replaced with more traditional communication systems, while scientists and ethicists debated the future of advanced telecommunications. Dr. Huang published extensive research documenting the psychological impact of unwanted telepathy. Her work became essential reading for anyone studying the intersection of technology and human consciousness. She identified patterns of trauma that persisted long after exposure ended, including difficulty with personal boundaries, paranoia, and chronic anxiety about thought privacy. Min Tuan won international recognition for his investigative journalism, but he struggled with his own ethical questions about the story. While his reporting had exposed a dangerous government conspiracy, it had also contributed to social chaos and the collapse of essential communication infrastructure. In the months following, the revelation support groups formed for former volunteers of Project Ether. Led by counselors like Dr. Huang, these groups provided spaces for people to process their experiences and develop coping strategies for living with the memory of forced telepathy. Lin An became an advocate for victims of government experimentation, dedicating her life to ensuring that what happened in Project Ether would never be repeated. Her betrayal of her father created a permanent rift in her family, but she found purpose in protecting others from similar exploitation. The global telecommunications industry faced a reckoning. Companies that had participated in the cover-up saw their stock prices collapse and faced massive lawsuits from affected individuals and governments. The technology sector as a whole was forced to confront questions about corporate responsibility and the ethics of innovation. Religious and philosophical communities engaged in deep debates about the nature of consciousness and privacy. Many argued that the ability to access thoughts violated fundamental spiritual principles, while others saw it as evidence of a deeper connection between all human minds. Dr. Huang, despite facing legal challenges and death threats from government supporters, continued her advocacy work. She established a foundation focused on ethical technology development and served as an advisor to international bodies working to prevent similar abuses. The aftermath of Project Ether led to the establishment of international treaties governing consciousness-related research. The Global Convention on Mental Privacy prohibited any technology designed to access human thoughts without explicit consent, and created oversight mechanisms to prevent government abuse of neurotechnology. Years later, as 5G networks slowly returned under strict regulatory frameworks, the frequency ranges that had caused telepathic effects remained permanently banned. The world had learned a harsh lesson about the unintended consequences of technological progress pursued without adequate ethical consideration. The story of Project Ether became a cautionary tale taught in schools worldwide. Children learned about the importance of protecting mental privacy and the responsibility that comes with scientific discovery. The phrase, "the right to think freely," became as fundamental as traditional concepts of free speech and assembly. Dr. Huang often spoke to students about the dual nature of scientific discovery. Every advance in human knowledge carries the potential for both liberation and oppression, she would tell them. The question isn't whether we can do something, but whether we should, and if we do, how we ensure it serves humanity rather than controlling it. The telepathic abilities unlocked by 5G radiation proved to be temporary, for most people fading once exposure ended. However, a small percentage of volunteers retained limited telepathic sensitivity, leading to ongoing research into consciousness and the nature of human mental connection. Some former volunteers found positive applications for their residual abilities, working with law enforcement to help locate missing persons, or with therapists to better understand patient needs. Others struggled with the unwanted gift, requiring ongoing medical and psychological support. The debate over whether humanity was ready for telepathic technology continued. Some argued that with proper safeguards and voluntary participation, such abilities could enhance human empathy and connection. Others maintained that the sanctity of private thought was too fundamental to risk with any technology. As Dr. Huang aged, she reflected on the price of the truth she had revealed. The exposure of Project Ether had prevented a dystopian future of thought control, but it had also shattered trust between citizens, and their governments disrupted global communications and caused immeasurable suffering to the volunteers who had unknowingly participated in human experimentation. Yet she remained convinced that the alternative, allowing the technology to be deployed for mass surveillance and control, would have been far worse. The temporary chaos of truth was preferable to the permanent imprisonment of minds. In her final interview before retirement, Dr. Huang was asked whether she regretted her decision to expose Project Ether. Her response became one of the most quoted statements about the responsibility of scientists. "I regret the suffering caused by our research, but I could never regret ensuring that human thought remains free. The moment we allow governments to access our minds is the moment we cease to be truly human." The legacy of Project Ether lived on in the institutions and safeguards designed to prevent similar abuses. The International Committee on Consciousness Research, the Ethics Board for Neurotechnology, and the Global Network for Mental Privacy all trace their origins to the crisis Dr. Huang had helped expose. As technology continued to advance with new frontiers in brain-computer interfaces and artificial intelligence, the lessons of Project Ether served as a crucial reminder. The power to access human consciousness carried unprecedented responsibility, and society had an obligation to protect the most intimate aspects of human experience from exploitation. The question Dr. Huang had posed in her testimony, "Are we ready for technology that can peer into our souls?" remained unanswered, perhaps because it was the wrong question. The real question, as the world had learned through painful experience, was not whether humanity was ready for such technology, but whether technology could be developed in a way that honored human dignity and preserved the fundamental right to mental privacy. In the end, Project Ether became more than a cautionary tale about government overreach or corporate irresponsibility. It became a defining moment in human history, marking the point at which society collectively recognized that some boundaries should never be crossed, and that the power to read minds was a power no institution could be trusted to wield responsibly. The volunteers who had suffered through the experiments were never forgotten. Annual memorials honored their sacrifice, and scholarships were established in their names to support ethical research in neuroscience and consciousness studies. Their pain had not been in vain. It had purchased a future in which human thought remained free from technological intrusion. As the world moved forward, the phrase, Remember Ether became a rallying cry for those defending mental privacy and human dignity. It served as a reminder that progress without wisdom was not progress at all, and that the most advanced technology meant nothing if it came at the cost of human freedom. Dr. Huang's choice to expose the truth had shaped the trajectory of human civilization, ensuring that as technology advanced, it would do so with respect for the sanctity of human consciousness. The fight for mental privacy had been won, but vigilance would be required to keep it won. The story of telepathic abilities unlocked by 5G radiation would be told for generations, not as a triumph of science, but as a testament to the courage required to choose truth over convenience, freedom over control, and human dignity over technological might. It was a story that reminded humanity that some prices were too high to pay, no matter how promising the rewards might seem.